All right. Welcome to the Forest Brothers podcast. It's your boy Munza Chris Don out here in the cut, joined by the usual brothers, Nkosi Samson, and today we have a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, you might not know what the man looks like, but you certainly will know his voice. It is Tinto from the Feeling Station podcast. Tinto, I was about to say hello to the people out there, so don't think I'm lying.
Hey, what's happening, everyone? Yes, this is Tinto from the Feeling Station podcast. It's good to be with you guys. You guys have incredible smiles, by the way.
Man. We tried, man. We tried with the same dentist, so.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, of course, I was about to say hello to the people, and then over to you, Samson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Muta, for the platform. I'd like to say hello to you, Mr. Murari, Mr. Sampson as well, and hello to our special guest there, Mr. Tinto. Very interesting podcast that we have here today. So it'll be a good one, listener.
Fingers crossed. Yes.
Hello, dear listener. Welcome to the Forest Brothers podcast. And once again, here with my two brothers, Nkosi, Mutsa. Great to see you guys. Tinto, fantastic to have you on, man. And yeah, dear listener, once again, nothing but illustrious guests. Once again, we've got a brand new guest. We're going to get into some interesting stuff today. And without further ado, let's get into it, gents.
For real. Let's get into it. So, Tinto, first things first. Oh, listen, let me just say this. If you do not know, the Feeling Station podcast, not the filling like gas station, but the feeling, what about the feels? The Feeling Station podcast is about relationships, mostly about breakups. But I'll let Tinto explain all that. Tinto, how's about to explain what your podcast is about and how it even came about as well? Let's just start from the origin story of the Feeling Station podcast.
Cool. So the origins dates back to 2020. Just when COVID was hitting, but I was clueless that COVID was going to hit. Anyway, I got a really good friend of mine in Canada called Ruvimbo, who decided she was going to go on a Facebook Live and talk about how she was in a 3-year abusive relationship without even knowing it. And typical example, the guy that she was dating at the time was very keen on tracking what she was doing, who she was with, and all of that stuff. So for her birthday, he brought her a Samsung phone along with the Samsung tablet and set up a Samsung account. But while she thought this was all flowery and beautiful, it's because he wanted to be able to see where she was, with who, and saying what and for how long. And this happened for a 3-year period. And she only clocked when one day she said that she was going to go and sleep, but she really wanted to hang out with the homies. So she said good night, hung up the phone, and then went out to the club with her friends, and the guy turned up 20 minutes after she arrived. So she was like, yo, this is freaky. And then he kind of had an outburst, and then the penny dropped that she'd been in a 3-year emotional and verbally abusive relationship for 3 years. Now, I didn't know she had shared this story on Facebook Live. Someone from Zambia, a friend of mine I worked with, sent it to me. I was like, yo, you Zimbos are moving mad. What's this about? I was like, yo, that's my homie. So then I saw 45 minutes. And I was like, hey, this is a lot to listen to, right? So anyway, I put my headphones on, listening to the story. Guys, I couldn't tell you where those 45 minutes went. It felt like 5 minutes. The way she told the story, how crazy it was, how she was oblivious to the red flags, or she chose not to listen to them because she thought she could change him, or he would eventually change. I was wild. So I picked up the phone. I was like, you know what? Your story got me so hooked. Do you mind if I carry this idea forward, but in the form of a podcast? And she's like, you're my homie. Come on, do it. And literally, that is what gave birth to the Feeling Station podcast.
Wow.
And then initially, because your question was, what is the podcast about? So initially, it was about romantic breakups, where I just ask what happened in the relationship. So I kind of get a backstory to see why the relationship was flowery in the first place, and then where the red flags was, and what difficulty people had processing those, and eventually what made them say, okay, this is it, I'm out. So I did that for 2 years. And then in the last year, I've decided to include not just romantic breakups, because just as you are 3 brothers right now, something drastic can happen and you guys will never want to see each other ever again. So for me, it's that whole thing to say, okay, with human relations, what are the things that could possibly go wrong? And when they go wrong, what is it that somebody listening to this podcast can learn from? And that's why it's really thriving. It's because it's not just salacious content. When But when I think about what the Feeling Station podcast really is, it's a gossip mill that went to private school. That's all it is, because it's people's stories. It's people's stories. But he went to private school because the first thing I always drum right from the onset is, what do you want Nkosi, Samson, or Muta listening to this episode to learn when they go at the end? And that is what keeps people coming back, because no lesson is the same. I mean, I'll give you an example. Episode 15, the lesson that the guy gave, it's only one lesson, is that having more than one girlfriend is too, no, having 3 girlfriends is too many. That was his lesson, period. And I was like, what? And then when you hear how the story morphed, it made a lot of sense. But again, that is different from somebody who will say to you that if somebody slaps you on the face, it's usually a sign that he's going to abuse you physically. So because of the diverse lessons, people keep coming back, and that is what's made the podcast become what it is today. That is literally the backstory of the Feeling Station podcast. It's all really down credit to my friend Rubimbo out in Canada, and I always pay this homage to her.
Oh, okay. Can I just take you back a bit to like the beginning? Like your podcast is called the Feeling Station Podcast. Like, how do you come up with such a name? Because like I think some of the guests we've had have also asked us like how we came up with like the Forest Brothers podcast. Like, I just want to hear like your backstory and like how the name came about.
The backstory for me for that is very simple. It's literally how my friend's story made me feel. Because from the onset, when I was listening to it, I was like, no, you were having a really fun relationship. This is really good. And then she started describing a lot of the things that went wrong, including so I remember I spoke about the financial, the emotional, and the verbal abuse, but there was also sexual abuse in there. So imagine hearing a story more from being really happy and bubbly and, oh yeah, this is great. I'm feeling the same. And then I start hearing about the verbal abuse, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't like how this is making me feel. And then you hear about the physical abuse, which is even worse because now that's human contact, right? And then you hear sexual abuse. By the time I got to the end, the emotion I had at the end of the story versus the emotion I had at the beginning were 2 very different emotions. And because of how it made me feel, then I felt, okay, if somebody's going to come onto my podcast and tell me a story that could morph in the same way, you're really messing with my emotions. You're really tapping into a lot of my emotions. And that's why I then decided maybe I will call this the Feeling Station, because of how it potentially will make you feel whilst you go from the journey from cradle to grave. And that's how the name of the podcast came.
Actually, I have a quick a piggyback to that, or not a piggyback, but a follow up to that. Like, so you're talking about how you're going through the feels as you listen to these stories, and you have a lot of episodes where a lot of people. I've listened to a few of them, and like, hey man, people talk about some real insane things, like insane. So my question to you is, as yourself, Tinto, as a man in the daily world out there, how do you take care of yourself from listening to all these stories over and over? Because it's not like when you record, now you have to edit, then release. So you listen to the story maybe like 3 times over, right?
You already understand this, yes, yeah.
So my question to you is, like, after hearing all these crazy stories about people going through all this suffering and like breakups, because hey man, breakups are tough. We all know that. So how do you take care of yourself? Like, how do you step back? Because a lot of people you hear about, like nurses, if they get the, what's that? Is it like that emotional trauma thing? Like, that thing that you get after like always experiencing heartache or seeing people die all the time. You get, I can't remember what the word is. There's a specific word for it. But anyway, how do you deal with that yourself?
So initially I thought I was Kunta Kinte, and I thought I could handle all of this emotion that comes in and I'll just bounce it off. I'm like, yeah, I've just told me this, Guan, hey, this is your own problem, man. You need to handle your own business. Go and have my usual snacks, which I have, continue with my life. Until I heard the story about, I think it's episodes 96 to 100. This lady narrated to me how she was once beaten up by her partner so much that she didn't only black out, but her entire body gave up, right? So, and when I say gave up, she became incontinent. She just wet herself. And then she also had other stuff come out. That I got off the phone, and it took me a good hour to process everything, because this beating she experienced was for 15 minutes nonstop. Can you imagine what it's like being beaten by somebody for 15 minutes nonstop? So we've been recording this for just under 10 minutes now. So the whole time we've been talking, somebody has been getting themselves beaten, plus an extra 5 minutes. And she was pregnant on top of that with his second child. And when we're talking pregnant, she wasn't 2 or 3 months. I think she was about 7 months pregnant, so heavily pregnant. So that was a lot. Went to bed, woke up in the morning, it was still playing on my mind. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, maybe I need some support with this. So I've happened to join a network of counselors and psychologists because I'm thinking of, kind of going into that way, that path. And then I said, look, this is what I do. They're like, oh yeah, you need to have support. So they got me roped into the network, and I've been part of the network now for a good 6 months. And I am required by the network to check in with them at the end of every month to say, dude, how are you coping? What is messing you up? Has anything really messed you up? Come, let's talk about it, and then we kind of debrief. So that's the support that I've now received, and I didn't think I needed it, which is a typical, I guess, African way of thinking. Sometimes there are certain things that we feel we're macho enough, we're man enough to handle, until the cracks really start to show. And I guess what being in the diaspora now has done for me is allowed me to pay attention to my emotions and senses when something is becoming a bit unstable. Don't ignore it and say, I can muscle through this as a man. Speak to someone. So I just picked up the phone, joined this community, and it's the best thing I've easily done. So that is the support that I now use to get on and keep moving.
Well, I guess that kind of might bleed into the next part of my question. But um, you've been doing a breakup the podcast, um, but you've been in a relationship yourself.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, like, you see all these issues like pop up in all these different like relationships. Does that kind of inform how you look at your own relationships? Um, Not just your romantic one, but like
Yeah.
your relationship with friends, with parents, with coworkers. Has that How does that make you evaluate those relationships in your life? And have you felt like you need to make changes? Like, do you see, maybe you hear something on a pod and you're like, wow, that's a massive red flag that
Oh yeah.
exists in this relationship I have. I
Oh
should
yeah.
address that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, how's that kind of gone for you?
So it has gone two ways. It has informed me of certain things, and then even sometimes as I'm listening to an episode, I have an idea of where it might go because I've had a similar experience. So I've had a few relationships where certain things have consistently happened. And when I listen to somebody telling a story, I get a sense to say, okay, this is likely what's going to happen. Then it ends up being the one thing that happens. A typical example, you will have somebody who's still friends with their ex, right? And they'll say, no, we've moved over from that stage. We're no longer seeing each other in that light. We're now friends, etc. And then they move into a fresh relationship. The chances that that person and the ex will still occasionally, maybe once a year, find a moment of weakness and do stuff is higher than somebody who doesn't keep in touch with their exes. So if I've had somebody on the episode who said, "Oh yeah, I'm still in touch with my ex," there's a good feeling that towards the end, that ex was the reason why they broke up with the person that they're telling me about. That's one. On the other hand, because this podcast now talks about friendships and family, right? I've got some things that I'm starting to see now within my own family that were informed by episodes that have come onto the podcast. Typical example is when do you know if you guys have kids yet? No? Okay. When you do eventually have children, I think what you're more likely going to find is that you guys are going to have a closer relationship with your kids than your parents had with you. And that is absolutely nothing to do with your parents, but it's got everything to do with the generation that they come from. So the generation that my mom and dad came from is that generation that says, for as long as I'm providing for my kids, I don't need to be physically present all the time because I'm going away, I'm getting the money, I'm bringing it in, they're fed. That's cool. I don't need to hang out with them. I don't need to do their homework. I've got a house help who can do that. I've got a school system that can support that. But what that does is that it creates a distance between the parent and the child. And then the older you become, you get to understand you don't actually understand your parents the way that you thought you did because they were just never integrated in there like that, which is why it's important for me and my son to have that time as much as we can. So for me, it's not just about the provision of school and food and toys. It's about when he looks at me and I ask him, "What do you enjoy about Papa?" He can tell me what he enjoys about me. And I ask him this question at least once a month, and he gets it. So this has also been informed by people who've been on the podcast, as you were asking, Samson. So people have come in and they've expressed how the parents have been present in quotes, but absent at the same time, because the presence has been financial presence. So they know they'll go to dad and say, "Can I have ice cream?" They'll get ice cream, and dad is gone. It's never, "Let's go and get ice cream. Let's sit down. Do you like this ice cream? What's your favorite ice cream? Should we try another flavor?" So that's how the podcast has kind of worked both ways, in that I've absorbed stuff, and then I've also given stuff based on some experiences that I have. I'm going to point you guys to an episode that I did with these guys called 6 Foot Waves, where they cornered me. I generally don't like talking about what's happened in my relationships, but they cornered me, and they did a damn good. Literally, they tricked me. Right? I fell into the trap, and I had to talk a little bit about what happened in my relationship. And as wild as it sounds, it informs me of a lot of what happens with some of the people that I speak to.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's how it's panned out for me.
Yeah. Just to follow on like just talking about like just being having different relationships and
Yeah.
being a father. Like, could you speak to like this idea on like what fatherhood means to you, how it's been, how it's going, what are like the positives that like the few negatives that exist from time to time? Because like we have, I'd say, some listeners out there that are like first time fathers and
Yeah.
they're also just trying to figure it out. Like, what kind
Yeah.
of advice would you give to them?
Fatherhood is what you make it, period. That's number one. Fatherhood is literally what you make it. And the way that I perceive fatherhood, I see it as a blessing from God, who has just given me one commission. So if you read in the book of Matthew, there's the Great Commission, where he says, "Go ye therefore and make disciples of all men." That's a great commission, right? I have a commission that I take from him. And I say, "Thank you, God, for making me the custodian of a soul." And that's all I see myself as, custodian of a soul. And for me, all that basically means, you guys all have jobs, right? You are your own individual custodian of your own job. So if you decide you start your job at 9, but you decide to turn up at 3 o'clock every day and leave at 5, you're not taking care of your own job, are you? You've been given a target. You consistently miss your target. You consistently under deliver. You're insubordinate. You are literally not being the custodian of something that you've been given to sustain your livelihood. So instead, you guys wake up early, you make sure you look sharp, you make sure you deliver your targets on time, you make it for meetings, you do contributions, you meet your deliverables, because you want to thrive within your space. If I want my son to thrive within his space, I am the custodian of his soul. I need to be present. I need to give him the things that he needs so that he is the best version of himself. So whenever there's parents' meetings, I turn up. Whenever there's a requirement for me to do his drop off and his pickup, I turn up. When he needs to do his piano, which he does, to do his swimming, which he does, his athletics, which he does, I am there looking for a school for him to get into, looking at the times that work for both of us, both mom and dad, and making sure that I'm present and available. So because of that, contrary to what I think the older generation feel, I remember my dad and my mom once saying to me, "Look, we want to spend time with you, but then we've got these meetings that we need to attend and do." And they'll just be in those meetings for God knows how long. Then I'll see them at the tail end of the day, and they'll say good night, and they put us to bed. And then we were sent to boarding school, which means I would be in a school for 3 months, and I see them on holiday for 6 weeks. And within those 6 weeks, they'd only take maybe 2 days off to hang out with us. So we didn't really get that bond like that, even though I knew they loved me to bits. However, with little man, this is how it has worked with me. So the work that I do can either be office based or remote. So when COVID hit, obviously everybody was made remote. I got used to remote. I got used to the pattern, which was the drop off, the pickup, then getting him home to clean him up, do his reading, do his piano practice, do his swimming. And then I got an offer for a new job at a new place. Do you know the first thing that I said to them before looking at the money, which was by far much better than what I was on? I asked them if they could give me remote working because I have childcare arrangements I was not prepared to compromise on. Then they said, well, we can't really promise. And I was like, well, then maybe let's not even start the conversation because this is such a key thing for me. I'm willing for this job to go, at least so that I can accommodate my son. And then the recruiter said, let me go and speak to the company. They spoke to the company, said, yeah, we can accommodate. You can work from home. I went for the interviews. The job offer came, and within the contract, right, was a line that says that this job is going to be predominantly office based with the occasional home working. And then I just took the contract back and said, this is not what we agreed on. If you can't make this predominantly home based, I can't accept this. And guess what? They changed it. And so the point I'm driving at, in Kosi, to support what you were saying, fatherhood is genuinely what you make it. And remember, before we started recording, I expressed to you guys that I was not keen on having a child at all. And then this little fella comes into town, and then suddenly I remembered, okay, I really didn't have that much time with my folks as I would have wanted to. So maybe let me try and do something differently. And honestly, it's the best thing I could have done. Easily the best thing I could have done. And if I could encourage anybody here who's thinking twice about having kids, one, do it, right? Whatever it is that you need to do to make it happen. Do it. Have that child come in, but you have to be intentional. And one piece of advice I would give to anybody thinking about being a parent, you have to be intentional about what you want to give your child, because they're called dependents for a reason.
Yeah.
They depend on you for financial support. They depend on you for emotional support. And literally, they are what you allow them to take away from you as an individual.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. You know what? I think, that's. I think you've touched on a lot of good things there. And what you were saying about the company was offering you more money, but the money was not a thing for you. It was like, yo, childcare. That's counterintuitive to a lot of things that us as men are taught, right? It's like even what you're talking about, where like as a father, what automatically once you know you're having a kid, the first thing is I need to go get the bag so I can give my child everything, right? And then you miss out on like the emotional bond that you can create with your kid, and you focus more on the financial thing because you don't want your kid to go hungry at the end of the day. I think a lot of brothers get messed up in that. Oh, I need to provide, which is, I mean, it's true. You do need to have money in the house, like in order for you all to live, but also you don't have to sacrifice, But I mean, but in diaspora it can be a bit tough, right? Because rent out here is not cheap. You know, you have to work sometimes more than 40 hours a week. And if you're a single parent, you have to work 2 jobs sometimes. So just the time to even spend with the kid is not there. Otherwise, you're just not going to live a good life. So it does get complicated, but just the intentionality piece that you're talking about is important. And
let me just add on to that as well, something that I may have missed out on. There's 2 things that I need to add. So Damon Dash, right? The guy, the Rockaware fella, etc., etc. I'll send you guys a link to a discussion he had with the guy called Stephen Bartlett on a Diary for CEO. And he said one line. He says, kids don't give a boo about your money. Right? And this is a guy who is moneyed up. He said it twice. Kids don't give a boo about your money. All they want is your time. And that hit home so much. So that's one thing to add on, to say finances are finances. They're great. But time goes. If you could lose £1 today, you can make £2 back tomorrow because it's money. But if you lose an hour today, you don't ever get that back. So invest time, invest as much emotion as you can. That's number one. And then number 2, one of the reasons why I didn't want to have kids in the first place is I was worried about finances, because I hear all these people saying kids are expensive. There's nursery fees, there's transport, there's baby food, there's clothes, there's toys, there's everything under the sun. And that was good enough a reason for me to keep it zipped up. Because I was like, hey, I'm not about to become a broke fella and I can't support a child. But guess what? I mean this from the bottom of my heart. The opposite has happened. Because I was on, say, the rough figure, £2,000 a month before little man came into town. When he turned 1, we had to send him to nursery. his nursery fees was twice what I was paying for my mortgage. So suddenly I went from, let's say if it was 2,000, I now needed to make sure I have 3,200 pounds in my account from somewhere. And guess what that made me do? It made me upskill. So I had to go back to the drawing board and say, so if I need to improve my income over the next 12 months by 1,200 pounds, what do I need to do? And then I saw a lot of options that came up in risk and compliance. There was some stuff that dealt with development. I was like, I'm not really a developer, so let me go down the risk and compliance route. Took a chance with training, took a chance with interviews. Someone saw the potential, they took me on. And not only did I make up the difference that I needed, but it was also double the amount that I received. So speaking as a man, if little man hadn't come, I swear to God, I would have still been earning the same money because I was comfortable. But the existence of him made me so uncomfortable. I had to get off my butt, upskill. And since then, I've just continued to upskill because now I recognize, okay, I don't want him to be in regular school for a long time. At some point, I'd like him to get into private school. And for us guys, we are first generation. Well, I'm a first generation migrant up here to the UK. So I don't have somebody's money I'm absorbing from that's been made for me in the UK. I'm literally setting the foundation. So because of that, again, it pushes me to make sure that I have enough money for him not to ever get student debt. I don't ever want him to have a college loan to support his tuition. And then if I do pass away, I want him to have a house. I want him to have a pension. I want him to have inheritance that he's comfortable with. And I'm 40 now. That means I only have 25 more years worth of work. And by the time you hit 50, you're not really as attractive work-wise. You know, yeah, you have wealth and knowledge and experience, but people aren't really looking for 50-year-olds to really spearhead something significant. It's the younger blood, or at least that's what I perceive them to be. So I have the next 10 years to try and make a big difference for myself. So it's always going back to the drawing board. By the time I hit 50, what should I be earning so that when I retire, little man actually has something solid? And that keeps pushing me. So kids, contrary to them being a liability that will keep men broke, if you are intentional about being a custodian of a soul and you know what you want that child to have, it is actually a catalyst for your success.
First of all, I just have to say, black don't crack. My man does not look 40, fam.
Hey, I'm 40, brother.
Bro, I'm shook. I'm sitting here and I'm like, yo, man.
Nah, man.
Man, come on, man. Come on. You have to give us what serum are you using, fam? Because, my guy, you're looking like you're 32 at best. Your lights.
Damn kids keep you fit. The way I run, the way I run around the field trying to catch that little dude. You know, I could almost call myself an advocate for kids. If you guys get them, man, you will have to move and get energetic.
So what Tinto is telling you, gentlemen, don't pull out.
Yeah, don't pull out. Stick with it, fellas.
Yeah, don't take us seriously on that, man. Do safe sex, guys, safe sex. But you know, just to bring it back to an earlier conversation, what you're saying, I just have to pick your brain on this. So, are you saying, Tinto, don't trust anyone who's friends with their ex? People who break up should no longer be friends. Is that what we're saying? Once you break up with somebody, cut it off.
Well, my question is, why did you break up?
What about if it's like, you know, long distance, like maybe someone moved somewhere and then it just wasn't gelling well, like.
Okay, so let's assume it was long distance, right? So you're in the US.
Yeah.
And let's assume she was here in the UK. So distance is not working out. Okay, let's leave this alone. Right? But you decide to remain as friends, for instance.
Yeah.
Then she gets a job that posts her not only to the US, but posts her to your city, not just your city, your neighborhood. Now that initial problem that broke you up is no longer a problem. It's been solved. Therefore, what's the most likely thing to happen? What's the most likely thing to happen? Because the one thing that was problematic is no longer problematic.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it.
So you're saying that the reasons you break up should be enough for you all to never talk again?
I think breakups should only happen when you've both established this is no longer good for the both of us. Otherwise, there's always room for you guys to compromise and negotiate, because that's what relationships are all about, right? It's all about compromise. I remember I had this one ex who was, oh my God, she was crazy about keeping everything tidy. Me, I don't mind if a sock is on my speaker or if a sock is on my mic. Well, not on my mic, but if I accidentally leave a sock, I'm cool with it. It doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. But she would go ape, she would go nuts, absolutely crazy. But if I had kind of compromised and recognized that this is important to her, and I'd have made a bit of an effort, I would have not left it on the mic, but maybe leave it next to the washing basket. That's a different location. She'll still kick up a stink and say, why can't you just open the washing basket and put it in there? But it's all about meeting each other halfway. So if I had made a bit more of an effort to meet her halfway, meet her at a point of need, because if she gets stressed by seeing messy stuff, then I shouldn't be creating mess. So it's all about that compromise. The point I'm getting at, if I'm not willing to compromise, and this is such a big issue for me, fam, let me go. Let me break up. But before we get to that point, I feel there should always be some room for people to negotiate and try and fix things if this person is genuinely your person. And breakup should only happen when you both concluded, look, this is not good for either either of ours, my mental state, mental health. So let's leave it be. Which is why I don't get why you at some point you feel, okay, maybe it's an opportunity for us to get back. Because if your mental health has been compromised by you guys being so toxic with each other, why would you risk that happening ever again?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think an ex should become an ex for a reason. An ex becomes an ex when everything else has failed.
Yeah, like, there's some people out there who really believe that, hey man, like, hey, just because we've broken up does not mean we shouldn't be friends. There's some people who are in that camp, heavy. I've spoken to so many people like, yeah, man, just because we've broken up does not mean I don't want you out of my life. Like, let's say you've been together for 5 years, you've built something, you know each other very well, they know your family, you know their family. It's like,
Yeah.
how can we throw all of that away? Like,
Well,
it's,
my question to them is, what became so difficult that you had to break up?
Yeah.
Especially if you're boasting about having all these families. So Samson's family now knows Lisa's family and they're very well integrated. If you guys are having such difficult moments, Samson should be able to go to Lisa's family and say, this is the challenge I'm having. And I would be shocked if there's no old person who can really give motherly or fatherly advice to help you guys fix shit. Same goes for Lisa. She can get in such a hot, sticky situation with Samson. She should be able to go to Samson's family and say, guys, I'm really, really struggling with the fact that Samson always wants to go out at night. It makes me uncomfortable. I'd rather he be at home and making me feel good about us as a couple. I'd be shocked if there's no one, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt on Samson's side who'll be like, yo, Samson, if you're serious about this, chill. This is your person. Which is why I say, if it goes beyond that point and Samson is like, yo, I like the lights too much, the music is too good, I'm out, let him go. You get it? That's the point I'm getting at. By the time we break up, guys, I think shit has just got so bad it's better for it to just end.
Yeah.
Because how do you then sit back? So let's say Samson has decided he wants the lights, right? And then Lisa wants to remain friends, right? And then she decides to call her friend Samson and say, hey, Samson, I'm just calling to check on you. How are you doing? And guess what? The first thing she hears is, I like to move it. I like to move it. Because Mandem is in the club. She's going to be reminded again of all the reason why she decided, I don't want to be with this dude. So why do that to yourself emotionally? Yeah. Why torture yourself? Why remind yourself of the one thing that potentially always hurt you? I'm not friends with any of my exes. I ain't got a clue where they are or what they're doing or who they're with. Zero. And guess what? It makes the person I'm with at peace.
Yeah.
She's never, ever had to worry about an ex. Never. And I think that's the way it should be. How many of you guys know somebody who's gotten in trouble because of an ex pitching up?
I will all have, Baba.
Don't mess with the ex.
That's obviously, yeah. So if you hear this, listener, hey, if you're seeing somebody and the friend's the ex, man, I mean, to be honest, that's why I used to have issues with my ex as well. Like, she liked keeping the exes. And I was like, we had fights. So hey, you know what? Like I get that thing, man, because I've been through it myself. So
Boy, I see some of
get
it. What's up, big man? Where's he
My
going?
guy decided to
Hey,
pull up.
right. He's yeah.
He's-
Little man,
he's-
he just come back.
Oh, okay, cool.
But yeah.
Okay.
You know what?
The co-host over there, big ups to the big man. You've changed your dad. I don't know if he can hear you, but I hope he knows what he's done.
No, he can't. He can't. Anyway, Papa, I need to finish recording, okay? I'll come and play with you just now. No, that's cool. Come on, little man.
Yeah, you see, guys, this is what it means to be a father. Gotta manage things, balance.
That's exactly what it means.
Balance is important. But anyway, Samson, go ahead, man.
Yeah, before I start, I just want to put out a PSA, dear listener, I am not in love with the lights. I'm not out there every Friday night, every Saturday. I take it easy, Should put that out there, man.
Brilliant.
Don't be putting hot water here. But yeah,
that's brilliant.
I was gonna ask, I know you've probably heard a lot of crazy stories, a lot of messed up stories, but I do want to hear about which particular lesson do you feel has been the most impactful? And this doesn't have to be necessarily just like for you, but like just objectively speaking, seeing the stories you've seen, situations you've experienced, like what lesson that a guest came on with. I know you mentioned earlier, don't have 3 girlfriends.
Yeah.
And that's one of like the more lighthearted ones, but like what's like the best like lesson you've heard, the one you think most people would benefit from, other than don't be friends with exes as well?
So there's a lady who, hey, this really broke my heart, man. I recorded when I went to Harare. So I got a series of episodes that are called the Harare episode. I happened to be in Harare and I physically sat with these people. This girl was in a year-long, 18-month-long relationship with the guy who was physically abusive, right? So first time, he just gave her a slap on the face. She's like, oh, I don't like this. Next time, it was 2 slaps on either side. Third time, the slaps would be 1 slap and then 1 punch. Eventually, they all became punches. But what would happen is this guy would be physically abusive. He'll come and apologize, and his apology would always be a high-end gift. So something from Louis Vuitton, something from Gucci, a bouquet of flowers. They're these flowers, forever flowers that last up to 2 years. So she got to the point where she became addicted to the physical altercations, because she knew that if I have this happen to me, the end result is a present that I really love and appreciate. And for the first time ever, and this is why this is so profound for me, I stopped saying and asking questions like, but why didn't you get out of the situation? Because from somebody who's looking from the outside, it seems like it's simple to just say, hey, you're whacking my face, it's painful, I'm out. And things like the Stockholm syndrome suddenly became a very real thing for me, where somebody falls in love with their abuser. Because what she was now getting out of being abused was by far more important and beneficial to her than the actual pain of being smacked. Because imagine if somebody slaps you on the face, right? You're going to feel pain for maybe 10 minutes? And if the slap is solid enough, you might have a buzzing ear for maybe 20 minutes. And maybe that's potentially as far as you're going to get. But beyond that, right? Thank you, mister. This is what I was talking about. Guess what? I've just been handed. Right? This note says, I love you, Papa.
Oh, we love to see it.
Literally it. And this is the point I'm getting at. What you feed these little kids is exactly what they give you back. Yeah. Okay, what does it say? Come. Oh, I love mommy and Papa.
You had to put the disclaimer. It's like, hey, listen, it's not just you, man.
Well, guys, this ain't all about you, baby.
I'm almost finished, okay? So anyway, brothers, that really crushed me. I know you guys all know a woman who is physically or emotionally abused on a regular, and she keeps going back to the same dude. And we ask ourselves, what the hell is wrong with you? Can't you see what it's doing? I've stopped asking that question because something happens to the human mind that makes it okay for them to continue receiving that kind of treatment. Because on episode 40, again, another lady says to me, she grew up in a family where she was constantly abused and hit. And her father says, if I hit you, it means I love you. If I don't hit you, it means I don't care about you. So she is 35 now. And I interviewed her when she was 34. For 34 years, she believed that being smacked on the face is a sign of love. And the guy she was with constantly did it. And she's like, this is my validation. It's only after she got beaten so bad she was unconscious that the penny dropped, that this is not right. So the most profound lesson, Samson, to answer your question, for me is I will never pass judgment on anybody who is failing to leave an abusive relationship, because I think it's no longer an issue of them thinking in a way that we describe as normal, in quotes. They're no longer themselves. They're now dealing with a mental health issue that is beyond them. And that person needs help. Imagine this woman I'm just describing will get to the point where the boyfriend she was with was very jealous. She would deliberately find random pictures of people, whether it's from Twitter or Instagram and Facebook, put it on a WhatsApp status, put that same face on a WhatsApp profile picture so that he gets mad when he gets home and he asks, who the hell is this? She receives her beating, apology comes, and then a bouquet of flowers comes a few days later.
Yeah. Wow.
That's how bad this became. I'll send you guys the link to the episode. And then, oh my God. And what made it worse was every time she dropped a bomb about something that was really emotionally distressing, she would laugh. She would chuckle. She would laugh. And then it got to a point where I was like, hey, do you know what? I'm really, really trying to ignore the fact that you drop bombs and then you chuckle. How are you chuckling? And all she says to me was, Tinto, if I don't chuckle, I will break down in a way I can't control myself. So already deflection is a coping mechanism. So yeah, man, that remains, I think, my most profound lesson.
I can say that I learned the same lesson myself, because at some point in my own relationship past, I was just like, yo, this isn't right. Like, but then because before that, I just think, hey man, how'd you not leave that? Like as we were saying. But then it's like, you know, that saying that if you put a frog in hot water, it'll jump out. You need to put it in cold water and like
then
heat up the water and warm it up. Then it'll just stay. That's how I started thinking about that. Because like the relationship doesn't start abusive. Not usually. It starts pretty calm. And then over time, like, and then once you're in it, it's so hard to jump out. So like I also have a new like understanding that it's not always just saying, hey, get out of there. It's more than that. It's like there's a lot of stuff.
Not that simple. And
it's
you
not
gotta
that
be
simple,
and you have to, you as a friend, you have to be patient with these people.
Yeah.
You have to be as patient as you can be. I mean, there might be some few things that might need you to accelerate whatever action you take. Like, for instance, if they're getting threatened to be stabbed, okay, look, you got to jump on and do something. But yo, man, got to be patient. Got to be patient, because broken people, they're broken and they can't see stuff and they can't recognize it and they can't come out.
Yeah. No, that's good. I hope our listeners get that. But before we end here, Tinto, did you have any questions for us as the Forest Brothers, or just general?
Well, the one question that I have really was to understand what got you guys so well connected. Well, what is the most significant thing linking the three of you as far as this podcast is concerned? What is keeping you going?
Well, we all went to high school together. So we're all in Swaziland. Yeah. So we all went to a United World College there in Swaziland. And that's how we all like Samson and Kosi were in the same year. And then I was a year above them. And then we just went to the same. So we've known each other for years. And then also went to the same college in America as well.
Wow.
So yeah. So like I went first and they came the year after that. And then we've just always kept in contact. So that's like, but Samson and Kosi even were roommates in college. So that's the basic synopsis of that. But I'll let Nkosi or Samson, you can also respond.
Yeah, just to add on to that, and then the other thing that I'd say, like, just for like this podcast, is like just general interest. Like, we all had like an interest in like soccer, in particular the EPL. So like, yeah, let's get a mic there. Let's just share a couple of opinions here and there. So that was like the main big piece that I certainly remember.
Nice.
'Cause, I mean, we did have like a little group chat, and after a while, it was like I think the three of us were like the most keen on there. Like would always post stuff, would always be more engaged than everyone else,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but yeah, after all, you're just like, yeah, let's just put this in a pod, and then
Let's do something. Yeah.
yeah, and beyond that, you're like, hey, we also like we have great discussions about football all the time. Why not talk about music, and then that also snowballed, and then now we're here with guests like you, talking about anything and everything. So yeah, it's just slow build up, I guess.
I'm obviously very curious about the name the Forest Brothers. Where did that come from, and what does it mean? What's the significance of that?
Oh, okay. Let's see. The Forest Brothers. I think it starts with our slang, right? So we commonly we affectionately referred to Africa as the forest because we're like, yeah, we are from the forest. Africa is the forest.
Yeah.
And then that's the root of it. And we're just like, hey, if we create a pod, why don't we just become the Forest Brothers? Because we're all brothers. We're all from the forest. That's what
Exactly.
brings us together. So yeah, we'll be
Okay.
the Forest Brothers.
And I guess that explains why you have the three trees in the top right hand corner as well.
Exactly.
Is that the significance of the forest?
Yeah, so that's the three forests, it's the three brothers, as well as the three guys and Africa in the middle. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And then the choice of colors across the African continent, is that of significance, or you're just trying to show that it's a vibrant, diverse continent? That's why you got all of those colors in there.
it's up to interpretation.
I like that. I like that. No, that's a really good shout. No, that's I guess that's what I would have wanted to know. And one other thing, because you mentioned that you guys obviously spoke about football, and I listened to a few of those, and I heard a lot of football conversations. Unfortunately, I wasn't exposed to sports. The environment I grew up, nobody in my family is either athletic or sporty or follows football. So for me, when it comes to football, whenever I'm watching the game, it's whoever is winning the most. So when Liverpool and Manchester played, it's obvious who are supporting when it was 7-0. I'm never gonna give myself a heart attack unduly. I see how my Arsenal fans always have a heart attack and palpitations. I'm like, hey, listen, my blood pressure is cool, and I've got the most chill blood pressure. So for me, whatever team is winning is the side I'm on. What I'm really more interested in now is, you said you guys spoke about music. What did you guys generally decide is the best genre of music? If ever you had that kind of conversation, because I got a view on that. For me, Amapiano is it. Amapiano is everything.
That's it. That's the answer. We're all gonna say Amapiano. Like that's
Say no more, right?
That's the answer right there.
Yes,
I mean,
we are Forest Brothers for real then.
Yeah, actually, do you listen to a lot of Amapiano? Because we're gonna have
What are you
one at
talking
some
about?
point.
I'm the king of Amapiano.
I bet we'll have a
Homie.
conversation because
Yeah.
Nkosi's an Amapiano expert. I'm just a novice. I just listen for the vibes. Samson is somewhat in the middle, so we have to have an
Listen.
Amapiano episode at some point.
Ngozi, please, can we seriously have that Amapiano episode? Because one thing I'm just going to comment on about that is, do you guys follow Podcast and Chill with Mike G?
Yeah.
So Podcast and Chill is got now well, they had just 2 episodes where they discuss what's happening in the music industry. And one of the panelists, for some reason, says that Kabza knows nothing about Amapiano. And the people you need to speak to about Amapiano are major leagues. I was like, what? You gotta be joking. You've absolutely gotta be kidding me. Because what Major Leagues does is they are a fantastic group of DJs, right? Who play a lot of what has been created by the likes of Kabza. So how do you sit there and say that Kabza is not influential in this space? As far as I'm concerned, he is literally one of the solid pioneers, along with the likes of Sound Matrix, And then you got DJ Maporisa, who's also really good and has been in the game for a minute.
We have mixed feelings about Apori, by the way. Mixed feelings.
Really?
That man doesn't do anything. That man just puts his name. Like I said, we should have an Amapiano episode. We should have an Amapiano episode. That man is not who you think he is.
Please, let's have that episode. Please, I'm dying to come onto that episode. And then just to kind of show off, because I know you guys in the US don't have as much exposure to the tours as we do. Scorpion Kings, when it came in December, I was there. When Kabza came 2 months before in October, I was there. And in 2 weekends, I'm going to go see Kelvin Momo and Mass Music because they're playing a set. And I've just come back from Vigro Deep, who was there 2 weekends ago. And I'm going to be in Amsterdam in a week where Devin Gogo is also doing an item. Are you guys feeling a bit jealous right now, mate?
We truly are.
A little bit, but not as much. Not as much, because in DC people have come. We've seen Major League, we've seen Pori came, DJ Spool came, Uncle Waffles came. So let me just give a shout out for Amapiano DMV in the DC.
And by the way, on the same podcast in Chill, I remember when I don't know who was Mac G, who was saying that DJ Waffles, Uncle Waffles, is not going to amount to anything because all she does is just dance in a thong and that's it. But look at her now. And I remember a lot of people saying that Amapiano was a dying movement. But look at it now. BBC Radio plays them every day. You go to a white party, guess who's singing? Whoa, Zakaman. Oh, white people. Don't mess with Amapiano.
So why did you leave the UK? It seems like it's the place to be, my guy.
Nah, hey man, let me tell you. Amapiano, yes, but everything else is depressing in the UK. That's why I left. I'm not going back.
I agree.
That's it. Man, you see sun once every 4 months.
Yeah,
fine.
no, you're right.
Okay.
You're right. You're right, brother. You're right.
Yeah, because I was in Leeds, Tinto, before I came back to the US. So
I'm going to Leeds tomorrow. I'm going to be in Leeds for 2 days for work tomorrow.
Would have actually linked up. I'm going back to Leeds in a few months, so
Okay.
I'll let you know when I come.
No, hit
back.
me up. Hit me up when you come.
Yeah. But Tinto, man, this has been great. We'll seriously have that Amapiano episode. We will have it. So
Please get me on there. I'm dying.
Yeah,
dying to get on.
We'll have a deep chat. We'll have a deep chat about it. But no, we appreciate you coming, man. This has been a great episode.
Thanks, fellas.
Do you have any last things you wanna? Okay, any last shout outs about your podcast that people should listen in? What should they expect from you?
Yeah, so if anybody's listening in, the places we can find me, really all major streaming platforms you find me. So Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, I'm on there. On social media, we're feeling_STN, and we've got a website that is coming up hopefully in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And then just want to say thank you to everybody who supported by giving coffees. We hit 500,000 downloads and streams in December. So we're now pushing to have 1 million downloads and streams by June this year. So if you know somebody who could benefit from what we talk about, which are the lessons, please point them in our direction. And the episode dropping today, episode 146, highlights that not every parent is a parent. And it's really apt for what we've just spoken about. I'll encourage you guys to listen to it. And this is not a child talking about a father. It's a child talking about a mother. And not only that, but a mother who's also turned lesbian. So there's a lot to consume, and I guess those are the shout outs, and I hope that's enough to get you guys to listen to episode 146.
I'm hooked. I'm definitely gonna tune in. I'm gonna tune in because
awesome.
So listeners, if you like, please go find the man. We'll also put your handle on when we post the episode.
No, appreciate it.
We'll do all that fun stuff. So
thanks.
Listener, thank you all so much. Nkosi Samson, any last words?
Oh yeah, just thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. Someone who can also talk about the Llanos as well. I think that goes a long way. That's the one. We'll definitely have you for the next one where you talk about the Llanos. Our Summer of Culture series is coming, so we look forward to having another one with you. So yeah,
I'm on it, brother. I'm on it.
Yeah, dear listener, once again, you have been with the Forest Brothers podcast, and once again, what a fantastic guest episode. My guy Tinto, you did not disappoint. My two brothers, Kosi, Mutsa, as always, fantastic recording with you gents. Tinto, please come back.
Will do.
you know, for that I'm a piano pod.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. You said you support whoever's winning, so does that mean you're an Arsenal fan right now?
Are they winning?
We're first, yeah, 8 points clear.
Oh, I'm Arsenal all over. Look, I got red. I got red, fam. I got red in my t-shirt blood.
Easy, you got another one.
This guy. Brilliant.
No, we'll have to see it, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, thank you so much, Tinto.
All
Thanks,
right, man.
everybody.